All right, guys. I apologize that this video is coming so late, but I am sick to the point where I'm even going to do this sitting down. It's not going to be a long one. It's going to be quick, but mainly I think there's really only like 2 talking points from the Grand Prix weekend that we really need to touch on. But what's going on, guys? Welcome back. We're here to talk about the 2024 Qatar Grand Prix. And boy, what a mess it was. What's going on, guys? Welcome back. The Qatar Grand Prix weekend is over, which means we only have 1 round remaining in the 2024 F1 season. And boy, oh boy, was this weekend memorable to say the least, but not for the right reasons. It was obviously the last sprint race weekend, which we saw the not even drama, but just the fact that Lando gave up his sprint win to Oscar to make up for Brazil. We saw a Red Bull that did not look particularly strong in the sprint race be able to make a very immediate turnaround for the Grand Prix qualifying and race itself. And we ultimately saw a sprint race that was a sprint race of all time. Now, let's go ahead. Let's kick things off since we kind of already have with our quick hits. And I think it needs to begin and end with primarily talking about the absolute clown show that was the FIA this weekend. I don't know how they thought going into 3 races remaining in the season that would be the perfect time to replace a lot of the head stewarding and a lot of senior officials within the FIA. Obviously, in the Grand Prix, we have Alex Albon's wing mirror coming off on the main straight. It then proceeds to take them. I was gonna say take them, but it takes 8 laps of it being there, of intermittent yellow flags to no flags, for Valtteri Bottas to finally run it over, shattering it into 1,000 pieces, into which we almost immediately cut to both Lewis Hamilton and Carlos Sainz with punctures. And it is effectively then, and almost exclusively then, do they finally throw a safety car. This is the buffoonery at the max that most people make fun of the FIA for. We're going to come to the penalties in a bit, but they ultimately results in Lando's race effectively being ruined. It ultimately also leads to Lewis Hamilton having his race effectively ruined. It had a team like Haas get screwed over for pitting Kevin Magnussen earlier than the safety car, when it made it apparently very obvious that they had no intention of throwing a VSC or safety car to clear up the wing mirror. It ultimately will put the Constructors title in doubt. It'll put the Constructors fight for P6 in doubt, as we'll cover here in a minute. But it's one of those things that just, I'm baffled by it. The internet is baffled by it. I think every major talking head is baffled by it, and that's just how inept the FIA was this weekend. Both the stewards and the actions of the FIA president over the last week and then leading up through the weekend has been just absolutely befuddling from start to finish. All right, we'll come back to the next part of that here in a minute, but we will mention Max Verstappen wins the Qatar Grand Prix. I think I saw that before his 1-place grid penalty for impeding George Russell. No, sorry. It's driving unnecessarily slowly when both he and George Russell were on slow laps, got him a 1-place grid penalty from Saturday to Sunday. I think that's really when we should have known that the buffoonery was in full effect, because what is that? No idea. Max obviously took it to heart before ultimately coming home to win on Sunday. So that really is where the FIA started out with the buffoonery. I almost said a bad word, but I'm sick. I do not have the energy to properly commit this level of frustration and hate towards an organization, so I apologize. But that'll bring us to the other penalties. Lando Norris receiving a 10-second stop-go penalty for not slowing under yellows, which is fair. Lando did not lift going past the waved double yellows on the main straight, gaining a huge chunk of time towards Max when everyone around him did do that. So he did commit the penalty. A 10-second stop-go penalty is not something that I have seen since I started watching Formula One in 2022. And from what I was seeing online, it has been a very long time since we've seen anyone with a stop-go penalty, in which effectively the FAA looked at McLaren in the eye and said, no, you shan't be winning the Constructors this weekend. We need something to promote going into the final race of the year, and ultimately giving Lando Norris effectively a race-ending penalty. Took care of that one off the rip. Obviously, Lando did end up coming home and finishing in P10, so he did manage to get a point. So at the same time, we're gonna leave that one alone. Also in the befuddling penalties is Lewis Hamilton getting a drive-through penalty for speeding in the pit lane behind the safety car. Granted, I haven't seen exactly how fast he was going in the pit lane, so I can't say for sure if it necessarily was a speed that would warrant that level of a penalty. But I mean, we've seen speeding in the pit lane penalties range from 5 to 10 seconds since I started watching, and I think I was not alone in being once again utterly confused at the severity of some of these penalties being handed out by the FA and the stewards. And I don't think we're going to get many answers. They said they're going to put out some clarification documentation. I haven't seen any of that as of yet. But based on the way that they seem to be handling things, I don't know if it's really going to say too much. So I have no idea what that was all about. Again, I really wish I wasn't sick and had the energy to truly dedicate the frustration and the mental capacity that I would have if I wasn't sick to this. But it's just, the thumbnail suits itself. The FIA clown show this weekend was in absolute full effect, ultimately leading to my next point, which is going to be Alpine. Pierre Gasly finishing in P5 in this race, thanks to Lando's 10-second stop-go penalty. Also just taking advantage and getting lucky with the fact that the safety car was finally thrown 8 to 10 laps after the wing mirror came off. And so Alpine back into P6 thanks to this clown show by the stewards. And then last but not least, I'm really struggling already. Sauber points. Zhou Guanyu scores 4 points for Sauber this weekend, finishing in P8. Can you believe it? Now I'm super happy for Sauber. Obviously, going an entire year without scoring points cannot be fun, and so getting on the board is definitely huge. I do feel bad for Valtteri Bottas, who obviously had to sustain some damage from running over the wing mirror, and actually was also running in the points there for a minute before Lando's stop-go penalty, ultimately forcing him back out of the points, and when Lando passed him to finish at the bottom of the points making position. So Sauber were very, very, very close to a double points finish, which seemed unheard of when this year started. So congratulations, Zhou. Congratulations, Sauber. Not ending with a goose egg has got to be one of the things that they're most proud of, and Zhou especially as he concludes his time in Formula 1 for now. We all know the rumors of him potentially moving to another team in a reserve driver role. We'll see what happens with that, but I'm happy to see them get on the board. I'm happy to see them actually perform and be able to finish the race in the points. So congrats, Zhou. All right, let's move on to our weekend winners and losers. We are definitely not going to spend any more time on this than we have to. Weekend winner, Zhou Guanyu / Sauber. I kind of went on about it already, but to finally score points in this season, which they have looked absolutely dreadful at portions of this season, definitely a weekend winner for me. I mean, just the elation that team and Zhou must have felt crossing the line to finish in P8 must have been immense. I could not be happier for them. I already mentioned it, so I don't think there's anyone else that could realistically qualify for weekend winner besides them. So congratulations, Zhou. Congratulations, Sauber. All right, and now for our weekend loser, I'm going with the fans, because the FIA clown show that was this weekend, not even this weekend, just Sunday / the end of Saturday, ruined what potentially could have been a fairly exciting race. The conditions in Qatar were very interesting. We saw a lot of cars and drivers having trouble really getting the hard tire up to temp, and so it would have made it a very interesting race from a strategy standpoint to try and hold off each other and try and maximize their performance on those tires. The conditions were much different than last year, in which obviously it was much hotter last year, and so the conditions being this different, this variable, plus a lot of cars and drivers showing issues getting tires up to temp on the making their first pit stops, it provided, I think, a very interesting opportunity before just the absolute buffoonery and the absolute clown show had to come and ruin a race with a lot of potential. So a lot of people are gonna, I'm not gonna be one of the people jumping on the it was fixed bandwagon, and they're just, you know, jumping in and trying to make things more interesting for the final race of the year. But at the same time, I'm not gonna not say that. So yeah, the weekend loser for me is us, because what is happening? All right, predictions, result, and we will get out of here, I promise. Let's run through. I'm starting with my pick for biggest positive surprise. I went with Oscar Piastri. Oscar has obviously shown a lot of potential around Qatar and Lusail last year. And, you know, he had a bit of a run of form lately that has just not really, I think, lived up to his expectations of himself. Ultimately, I think he absolutely performed very well this weekend, finished on the podium in the Grand Prix and won the sprint race, thanks to Lando Norris allowing him to go through. So, ding, 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 big point for me there, huge results. Moving on for my pick for biggest disappointment, I went with George Russell in this one. I think coming off of a Vegas dominant win and a Qatar circuit that did not suit the Mercedes very well last year, I thought George would take a bit of a step back. I don't know if it was necessarily far enough. Ultimately ended up starting on pole thanks to Max's penalty, but had a very, very solid weekend from start to finish, so no point for me there. Moving on to our Grand Prix qualifying. Top three, I had a Charles Leclerc pole, a Lando Norris P2, and an Oscar Piastri P3. Obviously, Lando the only one to start in the top three, but not in P2, so half a point for me there. Not too bad. Sprint winner, I went with Lando Norris, in which obviously Oscar Piastri won the sprint race. I decided to give myself and one member of my community a half a point here, because Lando led from the start and would have won the race had he not gone against McLaren's wishes to finish in the order that they were running and to let Oscar through, so half point seems fair for me. Moving on to our race podium, I had a Charles Leclerc win, an Oscar Piastri P2, and a Lando Norris P3. Obviously, Charles and Oscar both did finish on the podium, just not in those positions, so half a point each. Total it up, that's 1 point. And then my one crazy prediction was that Williams wouldn't have to do any repairs on their cars all weekend, in which I made it oh so close right before the very end, the Grand Prix itself. And unfortunately, Colapinto gets some contact, has a bit of damage, so no point for me there. Adding it up all as the weekend wraps up, we take a look at our points standings. I'd also like to say welcome to our latest entrant into our Community Predictions Championship. Although it is only for the last 2 weeks, you're always welcome to hop in. Join the Discord down below. You'll find the channel, I promise. But if we take a look at our current points standings, I now stand at 77 points. British is still in P1 with 78.5 points, only 1.5 points in the lead as we head towards our final round of the season. Settle with 74.5. F1 Inferno with the best weekend out of anyone here, 56.5 points now total. Andrew with 48, and Spectral, our newest entrant, with 1.5 points. Absolutely fantastic stuff, guys. But what is next? The finale of the F1 calendar is here. Abu Dhabi, racing around Yas Marina. It's going to be an interesting one. The Constructors' Championship is still very much up for grabs, depending on if Ferrari can have that good of a weekend. The fight for P2 in the Drivers' Championship is also now much more in contention, with Lando Norris only, I believe, 8 points ahead of Charles Leclerc for P2. So, like I said, a lot of drama, manufactured or not. Last year we saw a Verstappen, Leclerc, Russell podium, but the only question remaining is, who are we going to see standing on the podium for the final time in the 2024 season? Only one way to find out. Guys, that is going to wrap it up for me here. Thank you so much for putting up with me and being sick. We'll be back in a couple of days for predictions. Hopefully I'm feeling a little bit better. But I hope you enjoyed the Qatar Grand Prix as much as you can, even though the FIA are absolute dog water right now. And we'll be back in just a week for the finale. I appreciate you guys coming and making this far into the video. If you haven't already, subscribe down below and leave a like rating on the video. It really helps me out. And leave a comment below what you would give the FIA out of 10 for this weekend. I feel like I might know the answer. But that's going to wrap it up for me here in this one, guys. And I'll see you in the next one.